Well, it's good to know that whether they are blood or married into the family, the Millet line are all hotheads. Every one of them. Hello, everyone. Terrence with Hollywood already did it. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you'll be among the first to know. The seventh, the penultimate episode of Margo's Got Money Troubles is here. It is called Lariat Takedown. Um, this may be the hardest episode of the season to watch. I think the doxing episode had scenes in it that were very uncomfortable and just hard watching. This entire episode is a very just down and taking you. We're putting Margo and her family through the paces in this episode. Some of it is because of their own doing, because they just don't know how to react or respond, or they're when they're pressured, they lash out. But this penultimate episode puts us through the ringer. So we pick up with Margo, Bodie, Cheyenne, and Jinx in Lace's attorney office to discuss what it is that they can do regarding Mark's and Elizabeth's suit. Elizabeth is Mark's mom. We learned that later in the episode. And they are trying to figure out what the game plan is. What's the best course of action? Cheyenne is coming in hot. She's like, burn them all down, F this dude. She is swearing every left and right, but everyone else is trying to be a little bit level-headed about the situation that is in front of them. So Lace gives them the options. Like, there are really three options that you can do in response to the suit or the paternity request that they have. And it's one, approve. Just give 50-50 and call it a day. And they're all like, nah, that ain't it. That's not the way we're going. The second is to counter. But a direct counter would be having to go to court, and you're going to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars, which none of them have. It's also going to be a very lengthy process, so that it could go on for quite some time. They don't want to do that either. The cheaper, faster, and more fair option is to go to mediation, which that's the one that Lace sort of puts out there, and that's the one that Margo's like, that's the one I want. I want to go mediation. That's the one I want to go do. It's at that point that Lace reminds Jinx that, hey, you can't go anywhere near the mediation office because it'll violate the court order that's already sort of been in place, which Cheyenne, at this point, has no idea of. This is a little bit where Margo's naivete shows up. And it shows up quite a bit in this episode, and it has shown up previously before, but this is one of those ones where I was like, God, I forgot to remember that she's a 19-year-old. But she says Mark's only doing this to bluff. Like, he doesn't care about or think about, he's never even thought about Bodie before. And Lace has to be like, yeah, people don't just bluff when they're talking about paternity. Like, he's in this. Like, this is real. He's blown up his career, his marriage, like all of that is doing this has put all of that to fire. So no, he is all in for this paternity. So whatever you think he may be doing, that's not happening anymore. In addition to his family and career, it's also going to just cost him money. He's going to have to spend tons of money to go through this process, which Elizabeth can sort of bankroll, but that's all a part of this. Lace has let her know, like, this is going to be a war. It's going to get dirty. It's going to be grimy. And you got to be prepped for it, Margo, because it's coming. And they're coming for you. We get back home and we see that Jinx is in a bit of a rut. He is just laying on his back. And Susie is doing everything possible to sort of get him out of it. She's being the friendly person that she always can be. Like, hey, remember when you came here? This is probably the only real moment of levity that is happening in this episode, even though it's countered with Jinx just being a doldrum. But she's doing everything possible to sort of get him out of the rut that he's in. Now, my brain, and we learn a little bit later exactly why, but my brain was thinking that this was because of he can't get with Cheyenne anymore. He's feeling a little bit responsible for the road and the path that Margo is on. And all of this may be a part of it, but there's a little bit more that we learn on the back end, that his back pain has sort of flared back up and is not at 100%. But in here, it just feels like he's just feeling sorry for himself. So can't get him out the house. We then see Margo and Cheyenne at her apartment, and she's keeping her side apartment. So she's living with Kenny, but she's keeping her side apartment, which tells a little bit more about her character. It is very much a safety net for her. She's not 100% into the Kenny thing, not because she doesn't believe Kenny is there, but she's been left behind before by Jinx. And so she's sort of just holding all of her cards to the deck and saying, nope, I'm not quite giving this up. And she'll come up with excuses and like, hey, this is because it's cheaper than getting a storage unit and all this, but it's really, I need a safety blanket in case I end up on my ass again. I don't want to end up how I was the last time. She's sort of protecting herself, understandably so. Cheyenne then brings up that this family comes for money. Like you said, that's what the case is. And so I just want you to know that they're going to do everything humanly possible to throw their finances is the reason why they think that they are more fit than we are to take care of Bodhi. We need to step above and show that there is more influence to life than just finances. Like we need to do everything possible to be the best versions of ourselves so that the finances are a part, but not the whole part of what it is that we're going to go through. It's at this point, there's a pretty poignant moment that Margo says, hey mom, can I say one more thing? And instead, she just hugs Cheyenne very deeply. And you can see that Cheyenne hugs her back, closes her eyes, and she knows that her daughter is going through it right now. Her daughter's in pain. And if nothing else, right now she can be there for her. And it helps that it's the person that has gotten her up to this point in life is sort of back. Even though they had a bit of a tiff, has her back in her corner, and she feels sort of comfortable in going through what it is she's about to go through. Or so she thinks. So Cheyenne, Lace, and Margo arrive at the mediation. Lace lets her know that, hey, you just need to be yourself in there. Like, don't hide it. There, the arbitrator, the person that's sort of mediating all of this, needs to just learn more about you, and so just be your true self in there. So when they get to the waiting room, Mark, Elizabeth, and their lawyer, the one who helped sign the NDA for Margo, are all arrived. They have a very contentious and not pleasant meeting. But in that, the mediator comes out to says like, hey, the only people that can be in the room with me are the lawyers and the clients. So Elizabeth and Cheyenne, y'all got to wait in the waiting room, which I immediately knew that's not going to end well. But they stay in the waiting room while the other four with the mediator go into behind closed doors to chat. When the mediator gets them, first thing she asks is like, well, what's the goal of everybody here? Like, what is each person's goal? So she goes to Mark first and like, what is your goal? What is it that you want? He immediately says like, I want full custody because I believe that Margo is an unfit mother. And he bases that unfitness on financial, saying like, hey, she's already come to us for money before. 2, there's violence in the home. They have the father who's living with them, her father who's living with him, who's a violent man. She's like, he's not violent. And he pulls up his hand like, yo, he broke my hand. He's violent. And then 3, she's a sex worker. She does porn, to which she, again, this is where that definition of porn comes into. But she immediately is like, I'm not having sex. I'm not having intercourse on camera. I'm taking nude photos on camera for work, but it's not, I'm not having sex with people. And he's like, nope, you're a sex worker. It's porn. And to his credit, he's not wrong. By the very definition of porn, it's like anything that is photos, music, whatever, that is the point to cause arousal, that is porn. And so by the very definition, she is doing porn. But there should be levels of tiers. There are tiers to the levels of porn. She is not having intercourse on camera. And so there's a distinction of that. Or there should be. Mark's not playing that. He's like, yo, we're in court. I'm playing this to the letter of the law. I'm using the terminology that you're doing porn, you're doing sex work. He also pulls out a photo in this of her with her boobs out with the word boobs that we saw earlier, and he puts it on the table. Basically, his man means to harass and demean Margo in this moment, which Lace like, this needs to get removed. And the mediator tells him like, yeah, it needs to go. I want to say one thing. And it's probably going to come up, but the finance piece is weird to bring up in this, in that, yes, she approached you for finances because you are the father and you did not help. And then you gave her an NDA. So I feel like that may not be as big of a strong arm as he thinks, but I understand why he's using it, because these are the sort of letters of the law that you have to bring in to defame and sort of show that Margo is unfit. Now, mediator then goes to Margo and is like, well, what are your goals? And originally she's just kind of jokingly like, well, the baby needs breast milk, and Mark can't provide that unless he can, which is sort of a way to dig at him and says like, yeah, you're less than a man because everything you're doing is less than a man. He kind of gets offended by that and throws it back at her. But then she gets serious and she's like, look, Mark has shown no interest up to this point about being a father. And so I would just like to know what has changed since then. To which Mark rebuts, violence in the home. You're a sex worker now. You weren't a sex worker prior. And that has a long-term effect on this. Like, you're going to have uh, relationships that I would imagine aren't the best for men that you bring around the home, because who else is going to fall in love with somebody who's doing sex work, right? Like, you're going to have just bad people in your life being brought around. I would imagine the friends that you have associated with are also in the sex business. And so you're going to have all of this sort of around Bodhi. And then third, when Bodhi grows up, he throws what happens when Bodhi's friends find out that you are a sex worker and start masturbating to their mother's photos. Like, that's going to have a long-term effect on Bodhi. All of these things are the typical things that sort of get thrown out when people are doing sex work. Nothing new here. But you can tell that it sort of hits Margo, and the sort of the way that she looks is, I don't feel like she actually took any of this into account. Again, which leads to a bit of the hot-headedness and just impulsiveness that the Millets across the board have, because we'll get to Cheyenne in just a moment. But Mark says that Bodhi being exposed to all of this is just hideous. It's a terrible thing. So then in the waiting room, Elizabeth and Cheyenne begin to chat. And so she breaks the silence by saying, like, yo, I think you should know that my son Mark is a very respectable and honorable man. I raised him to be good and honorable. And Cheyenne kind of just laughs and kind of gives a look. Doesn't say anything, but then Liz continues on. And I feel like once Liz realized that she wasn't going to be in that room, she sort of came up with the game plan of, like, all right, I'm going to get this girl to do something stupid, because I can see that she's a hothead. And judging by the way that Margo operates, I can see that she also is impulsive. So I feel like I might be able to I think this is all a trap for her. I feel like the second she realized she wasn't in that room, she's like, I got something else to work with. Because she's pushing Cheyenne's buttons. She's like, look, I think your daughter preyed upon my son. I think she was a young woman who was throwing her kitty around everywhere. Like, I think she did this on purpose. And Cheyenne stands up and kind of just takes the aggressive part of the scene, and kind of just like, what? To the point where Liz says, like, you just standing up. I can stand up too. Just standing up don't mean nothing. Liz starts questioning her parenting, her being at Hooters. She's like, yeah, of course, this is how Margo's going to respond. Like, you were a mother who worked at Hooters. Don't think I know that. Like, Margo is just like her old mom. She says, like, Margo is just a chip off the old ratty and snatty old block. And at that point, Cheyenne wants to hear nothing else. And she punches Elizabeth dead square in the mouth. She feels remorseful the second she's done it, but impulses, like, that's just what all these folks do. She breaks Elizabeth's jaw to the point where she may have to have surgery. So Kenny goes to pick up Cheyenne from the police department, and Kenny is still there. The ride or die, still in the corner. The person who I thought would have just completely bailed out on the situation, no matter what this family throws at Kenny, he's still there. He's a good dude. Don't know how long this lasts, but he's a good dude. I'll get to it in a minute. Something just triggered in my head, and I'll get to it in a second. At home, after the mediation, Margo's talking to Susie, and it's like, look, yeah, she punched her. I got to tell Jinx. Where is he? And Susie's like, well, he's been in the bathroom for like the last hour, to which Margo gets a little concerned. Like, okay, well, let me go talk to him. She goes to the bathroom. He's not responding, not opening. The door's locked. So she goes to bust into the door. Susie and Margo find Jinx in the bathtub ODing on, looks like a needle, but we learned to be heroin. They immediately spring into action. They're trying to get him to revive. He has a very low pulse, still breathing, but very, very, very shallow. So they start splashing with water to wake him up. They get him up enough, but he's in no movement or way to sort of get himself out of the tub. So they try to get him out of the tub. When they do, they slip, and Margo ends up underneath Jinx, and he falls back into the tub. So she's sort of underwater for a little bit, can't breathe, while Jinx is on top of her. And he's a heavier man. So Susie is trying to deadlift him off of Margo to allow her to get some breathing again. She eventually does. Jinx is on the floor, but now he's not breathing at all. And so Susie is going to do CPR on him, and then Margo springs in and is like, hey, I remember, because of the situation that I'm in, I got a narco can. So she got a narco syringe, plunges that into Jinx, he revives, and then they all kind of just are there on the floor, and you see a scene of all three of them kind of like, oh, crap, they just went through pure hell. And then the heartbreaking piece of this is that you hear Bodhi crying in the background, needing him. It's just she had to divert her attention to her dad and his needs selfishly, um, while Bodhi is not getting the needs that he needs to have met. It's heartbreaking. And all things considered, Mark is not wrong. Based on what just occurred, yeah, this is a pretty crappy living situation. And I don't care about the OnlyFans piece is the least and non-offensive thing that can happen in that household. Jinx and this drug thing, that's massive. And that is with the violence that has occurred, with the broken jaw and the hand, there's a lot happening that would lead someone to believe that this household is not fit. That's it. Jinx is taken to the hospital, and Cheyenne and Kenny come racing and running towards the place. Cheyenne's like, "What happened?" And Margo says, "Like, well, all the things that have been happening. I was the person that sort of was responsible for rationing off Jinx's painkillers, and I have not been doing a good job of that. And so he was afraid to take painkillers by himself, so he went to heroin." Sure, she's making excuses in this moment because I feel like if that were the case, Jinx should have spoken up a little bit more about like, "Hey, painkillers sort of need them back on the ration." So while I do think his back was problem, there were so many other things happening into him that his first sort of reaction is to go back into the comfort of heroin. So I don't think this. She's taking more blame for this than she should. But they go into the hospital. Go into the room. You can see that Cheyenne's being very like caring and care about Jinx. She's putting her hand on him like you look like you're burning up. Like she cares quite a bit. While Kenny's sort of standing off in the corner, observing. He's just being the good guy in the corner watching all of this. Now, Cheyenne was smart enough to call Lace. And in this moment, it's probably the smartest thing she did. She's like, "Hey, this is another scenario that could get rolled into everything that's happening in mediation." So she's like, "I'm just going to give her the awareness." Lace arrives, checks in, and then she tells Margo to step out for a little bit. I need to have a conversation. She tells him that, like, "Hey, Mark has put forth a psych eval for you. Psych eval that also includes a home inspection. So here's what needs to happen. You need to get Jinx out of that house." And Margo's like, "Well, wait, no, I can't just like, you want me to just kick him out? Like, I mean, just put him out in the streets? Like, I can't do that." And Lace's like, "I don't care." And this is somebody who's a friend of Jinx, but her client right now is the most important piece that she has going. Lace's like, "I don't care what you do. Based on you being a sex worker, based on your mom just breaking a person's jaw, based on uh, uh, Jinx breaking a hand, you can't compound the situation by then having somebody who's a drug user in your home. You need to get him out of there ASAP. You need to do it now." Margo gets home and is talking to Susie and is like they're cleaning up the mess that sort of exists in the bathroom. And Margo is speaking irrationally to an extent, again, also naively, but like your main concern should be your kid. No questions about it. And I know that you love your dad and I know that you care a great deal about your dad. But in this moment, based on what's happening, I still feel like she's not taking this lawsuit as serious as she should be. You should be all in on like, "Hey, everything needs to happen in my household to make sure that I keep this kid needs to happen now." But she's so concerned, like, "I can't just put him out. Like the cost of living is so high, all of this." She wants to fix her dad, but this ain't the time, girl. This ain't the time. You can't fix your dad. He needs to go fix himself, and you really can't do it right now. Susie is the voice of reason. Like, "Look, I love your dad. He might be one of my favorite people in the world. You know how much I love him and how much I think of him." In this moment, he had just taken drugs in the house with your child. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He needs to dip. Like he can't be here. And she's like, and Margo knows this. But she's just butting up against it. And it's one of those ones like, girl. between Lace, Susie, and you should just know he cannot be there at all. So the next day, Cheyenne goes with Jinx to the rehab facility. She's helps him in, and it's an outpatient rehab. So because it's an outpatient rehab, he does need somewhere to stay, and that somewhere to stay, she winds up giving her apartment that she has on the side to him. She shows him the place, gets him settled, and then she's like, "Hey, no parties, of this, but you can stay here, and I'm going to check in. She says she's going to check in every week to sort of get close to switch out, but it's more sort of just make sure that he's not doing what he shouldn't be doing. So then she takes off. Margo goes to pick him up to then go back to the house to pick up the boxes that they have packed while this was happening so that he can officially move out. While they're driving, she's on the phone with Lace, and Lace is like, "Do you think this is a good idea?" Her staying with Cheyenne's place. She's like, "Yeah, no, everything's been taken out." And then Lace is kind of like going down the gamut of like, "This needs to be removed. This needs to be removed. Like anything can be used as a drug." Um, and she knows that Jinx is listening on speakerphone. While they're driving, though, Susie is trying to call, but Margo dubs her, ignores the call, and then continues on. Again, all things considered, I feel like you should answer any call that's coming from the house with your baby. That's just me. I don't think the place where your child is a phone call that you should be dubbing. But we'll take it. Sure. But they get to the house, and then as they're about to enter, Margo asks for Jinx's key, and then they head into the house. And yeah, Susie was trying to warn them that there are people here to inspect and investigate the place. But it's not the psych eval that Lace was sort of speaking about. It's CPS. It's government. It's actually a little bit worse because this can happen immediately. CPS is present because somebody has filed a complaint anonymously to talk about that they feel like there's a child in this home that is in an unfit scenario. So this complaint was made, what they say, outside of the custody battle, and now involves the government. The complaint's confidential, so they're not giving up who it is. But Jinx and Margo all feel that it's Mark. They feel like it's Mark now. My thing is immediately like, well, Jinx, you did just get rolled out of this house, this apartment, like a couple of minutes ago. I feel like anybody in this neighborhood might feel like, hey, there's a baby there. This don't seem like it's the fit spot for this kid to be. But as I've been thinking and talking about what's happened in this episode, I'll get to my actual person. I think it might be in a bit. But Jinx calls Lace. Lace is not answering, and so they have to figure out what they're going to do because they're inspecting today, no rhyme or reason. And if they don't get to inspect today, they're just going to call the police and have the police come in with a warning, and it's going to be a far worse sort of scenario. Margo and Jinx step aside for a little bit and talk, and Jinx is like, "Look, the government doesn't play. Like they are about this, and so we need to do everything humanly possible to just give them what they want. And all they're trying to see is that there's not a dangerous situation here for the kid. They will remove him if they feel like it is. So the best thing is to cooperate and do whatever it is that they're asking to do. You have nothing to worry about. You are a good mother." And in that moment, Margo does not want to hear that because she's like, "Yes, I am a good mother." But it's sort of a way of deflecting and throwing back at him. It's like, but that's not what I'm hiding. You are not a good father. You are not a good father. In the situation that I'm in, it's about to go left because I have to sort of hide the fact that you're here. So Margo goes back to the two government folks, a lady and a man, and says, "Cool, you guys are good to search. What do you want to do? Where do you want to start?" And it's at that point they ask, "Is there anything that they should be made aware of before they go on their search?" To this point, the Jinx steps up and says, "Yeah, so I'm a drug addict. I have been clean for some time, but I relapsed yesterday here in this apartment, and that is why you'll see some things in disarray. That's why you're seeing some things in boxes because, on the insistence of Margo, I have been removed from the dwelling, and I'm no longer allowed to stay here." And they're like, "Okay, thank you for that information." So he was just trying to get in front of it so that if they see things in boxes or they see things or if it comes up, he's no longer a part of the homestead. He just threw himself on the sword there. So then they go back to the back to look. It's important. It's a cool thing, but Susie sort of pats Jinx on the shoulder because knowing how hard that was for him to get out. So then they split. The female inspector goes into Susie's room, and the male one goes into Margo's room because Margo says she has to change Bodhi. So Margo is doing her changing, and she knows that the baby has a rash on it. She's like, "Look, they're going to judge me about this." Any little detail they have, so she's starting to over-explain things that are just a very natural thing, but she is feeling very uncomfortable about about all of it. In Susie's room, the female inspector is looking at everything, looking at the cameras, looking at everything. She's like, "Oh, okay, got it." And brings up like, are these cameras what Margo uses for her work. To which Susie infers that, like, oh, I see who made the complaint. It was Mark, because you know about her OnlyFans. They go back, they reconvene, all of them go into Margo's room, and they were like, look, I think we've looked at everything. Everything looks to be where we need to be. We'll put it in our report. The only thing that we need left is a urine sample from everybody that is here. And Jinx is immediately like, well, hold on. I don't live at that. I'm not a part of this dwelling anymore. I don't live here. It's like, I know, but we still need to have one of everybody that is present. And so then he takes his urine cup and he angrily goes to go pee. But the officers do let him know, like, hey, everything here is discretionary, but it will be put into the report. Well, damn. And that's how the episode ends. A couple of things. I think just overall, Cheyenne hot-headedness has put more, like, it was already the deck was being stacked anyway, with the broken jaw, the broken hand, the sex worker piece of it. Cheyenne just added to the fire. And so there are several sort of knocks against them, and there's nothing really to show that Mark is unfit. Like, there's nothing. He does look like the better situation and everything. Like, so there needs to be a point where something comes out where Margo calls out, like, the affairs or something to show how Mark is unfit. But the biggest piece of this is who made the complaint, who called the complaint to them. And for the longest, I didn't think it was Mark. I felt like that was too easy. And I don't think Mark would have done that, because if you put Bodhi into the system, it's going to be harder for both of them to get it, because then they're going to start going into his life, and it becomes a bad scenario and just a longer road for both of them. It's easier to just get Bodhi from her. And I don't think it's the neighbors, because I feel like maybe they don't care. Now I'm thinking it's Kenny. I think Kenny is the one who called this out, because he's seeing that Cheyenne is sort of spending more time and caring more about this. He has awareness of the OnlyFans, and, like, it's clear that in the complaint, the OnlyFans piece wasn't the big part of it. They didn't say why, but, like, if that information is given, that is something that, like, hey, I don't want you to go in there thinking that this is the bad part of it, because I don't care that much about the OnlyFans. There's other stuff that you need to go in there and check in. And Kenny may have been doing this on the back. I'm the religious good guy. I'm the religious piece of this, but he's also doing this because he wants Jinx out of the picture. And I really think that he's doing I'm here for you, and then he's making the call of, like, yo, there's something happening. That's just where my vibe goes. I could be completely off, but I feel like there's a Kennyism here that is trying to separate, not necessarily the baby, but to get off of the religious belief, like, that baby needs to be in a better home. I'm going to do what's best for the baby. I'm going to do what's best for you. I'm going to do what's best for Cheyenne. If that means getting Jinx out of the picture, I'm good with that. Who do you think made the complaint? Do you think it's Mark? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. A very downer of an episode. They got a lot to get to and wrap up in this final episode. But so far, I still love the show. This just felt like a very different episode than pretty much anything else that sort of came before. What are your thoughts? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.